Hey guys, Scarlett here. I hope you all are enjoying your summer so far. I wanted to talk to you guys today about a few of my favorite, I guess you could call it witchy travel destinations in the United States. So if you've been following me on my Instagram, you know that I've been doing a lot of international travel. So I've been going to Japan and Sweden and Denmark and Russia and a few places like that. And one of the things I really love to do is explore paganism and spirituality in the different areas that I travel to. And there are so many amazing places here in the United States that you can combine your love of travel with your interest in witchcraft or paganism or spirituality in general. So I wanted to share a few of my favorites with you today. So we're gonna start with the most obvious of travel destinations here in America, and of course that is Salem, Massachusetts. So Salem, Massachusetts is famous for the Salem witch trials. Though what's great about Salem now is that when you visit it, yes, you can learn about the witch trials, you can visit the cemetery where many of the women that were accused were buried, but it's so much more than just about that historical event. It's really a fun town to visit because if you're a witch in America, you know, a lot of people want to move to Salem. So there is a huge community of witches there. And that means there are an endless amount of fun shops to check out, all the way from like super kitsch to legit, you know, selling herbs and potions and things like that. So there's such a fun spectrum of shopping that you can do there. There's a lot of obviously community events. It's a really fun place to visit. For Samhain, they do a big festival time kind of a thing for Samhain, or any of the Wiccan Sabbats. There tend to be a lot of various events going on in Salem. So definitely I would recommend checking out Salem. I would say that the Witch City type merchandising can get a bit annoying at times. It seems that certain aspects of Salem have probably become a bit too commercialized, but it is really fun just to be in an area and know that, wow, there's a large population of witches and pagans here. You're not alone. And Salem is probably one of the few places that you really feel that. So that is my first destination here in the States to visit. My second destination is probably my favorite place in the whole of America to travel to, and that is New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans many times. I've seriously considered moving there. I may move there, we'll see, but New Orleans is such an amazing, vibrant, exciting city to visit. And of course it's fun and entertaining, you know, just with the food and the live music and the events, you know, without the whole witchy component. But there's also, you know, such fascinating history in New Orleans. New Orleans is such a unique place. There is no place in the world like it, and that has to do with its history. It, you know, starting out with as a French colony, and then Spanish, and then, you know, the Americans moved in after the Louisiana Purchase. So you have all these different historical time periods and components that really fit together to create, you know, a gumbo of different cultures. And a huge part of that is actually voodoo, coming from Haiti, from the slaves that were taken from Haiti and brought to New Orleans. And this is such a fascinating history in of itself. You know, jazz, you know, originates in New Orleans in part because the slaves, due to European slave laws at the time, would have Sunday off, so they would congregate in Congo Square and use African drums and rhythms, and thus jazz was kind of born and continued on from there. So there is so much interesting interplay within the history and the culture, and voodoo is a big part of that. There are still many voodoo practitioners in New Orleans, and you can visit different voodoo shops, and at the same time they do have a lot of other general witchy shops, I guess you could say, in New Orleans. Of course, there's the cemeteries as well. You can go visit the tomb of Marie Laveau in St. Louis Cemetery number 1. Though I would make a quick note on that. So they won't show you the actual tomb of Marie Laveau due to a lot of vandalism, and that's a whole nother issue that occurs on the tomb, so it's kind of hidden. Let me know, comment down below if you want me to reach out and tell you specifically how to find it, or at least where I think she is buried. But that's a very fun tour to go on to see the cemetery. You know, they also have voodoo specific tours, and of course there are so many ghost tours because New Orleans is one of the most haunted cities in America, so I would definitely recommend going on at least one tour while you're there. And you know, the culture there is just so exciting and different than what we're used to in the rest of the states. There's so much of a more Caribbean feel to it, and I just can't wait for the next time I get to go to New Orleans. I think about going to New Orleans like so often during the during my year. I've been going about at least once a year, but if I do ever move out of Chicago, New Orleans is the top of my list. So if you have not been there, I definitely recommend going. And for my third place to visit here in the States, that would be Savannah, Georgia. So like New Orleans, Savannah is considered to be very haunted. So if you are interested in paranormal type things, it's definitely a good place to visit. In fact, they say that Savannah is the most haunted city in America. And when I went to Savannah for the first time last year, I really did feel it. There is such a presence to the city, walking around the squares and the gardens at night and all these historic buildings. You really do kind of feel that otherworldly presence. And to me, it's just such a gorgeous city, in part because of the historic buildings and of course the trees. The most beautiful trees you'll ever see are in Savannah, Georgia. And on top of that, you do have this great kind of fascinating paranormal energy going on to the place. So I definitely recommend visiting Savannah, Georgia. So interestingly, all of these three cities that I mentioned happen to be some of the oldest cities we do have in America. And there is something to be said about a more historic city giving a bit more of a witchy vibe or a interesting historical presence, or just kind of that connection to the paranormal, because it is an older place. More people have died, more events have occurred. So those are my top 3 witchy, or I guess you could say pagan, places to visit in America. I'd like to know your list. Where would you consider to be the top 3 cities in America for to explore witchcraft and paganism and things like that? So share your top picks in the comments below. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little video today, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.